Salam sisters, my name is Zahra. I am a Fab 40 plus Muslim coach and I'm manifesting Muslim. So you've been seeing me floating around Facebook and LinkedIn for a while now, alhamdulillah. So life before the inside out paradigm and before my lightning bolt awareness, for me, emotionally, I was stressed out completely, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-loathing, enmity and animosity for those that had hurt me, a lot of why me kind of thinking, you know, why me, why did that happen, big time. Lack of forgiveness for a number of key people in my life. So that's where I was before the inside out paradigm. With the thinking, it was negative. With the body, I was sick in many ways, stomach and breathing and asthma and, all the kinds of stress-related illnesses that you get when you are feeling overwhelmed and confused and angry, really, I guess. A lot of anger. Yeah. So that was me before the inside out paradigm. The biggest, there's been so many shifts and they're subtle. It's not like you actually had to do terribly much, but when the realization that everything about my life is based on the story I tell myself about it. And somehow intellectually I knew that, but I didn't really accept it. And I knew that I didn't accept it because I was struggling a little bit prior to handling how other people had hurt me. And so going, yeah, but they did this, they did that, they did the other thing. And so once I made the decision that, look, sure, okay, they may have done whatever they did, and that's not to excuse some of the toxic behavior. But once I realized that I didn't have to wait for them to behave differently or respond differently, I didn't have to carry that with me. I could just let it go and go, okay, they did what they did, but I choose to behave differently, react differently, feel differently, come to some of those people that I still had to engage with, and just be different, not keep holding my breath every time I'd have to interact with them, stuff like that. And so it just opened up a whole lot of hope for me. Hope was a big one. Not feeling like the same thing was just going to keep happening, because I realized that when I do things differently, it naturally will be different because I choose to see it differently, I choose to act differently, and it didn't really matter anymore whether the other person responded one way or the other. But funnily enough, they kind of do, even when you don't try and change the interaction or the situation, it does anyway. So hope and peace of mind, a lot less fear, probably the biggest things that I've been experiencing since internalizing the realization that life is all about my thinking. Just fell away. I know it sounds so, the anger just fell away, and I know that sounds unbelievable because we're so used to sort of having to be told that we have to do things and shift things. And once I was able to just go, okay, they think the way they think, and their thinking about me is just, it's theirs. It's got nothing to do with me personally. Actually, funny enough, when you realize that people's response to you based on their thinking about you has absolutely nothing to do with you, that's relieving and a little bit sad at the same time, because you kind of realize that people are not actually, most often, they're not actually responding to you, the unique human being that you are. They're responding to the story in their head about you, which has got nothing to do with you. It's their story. And so once you realize that, you can go, okay, well, I don't have to take what they're doing personally. It's not because there's something wrong with me. So that's freeing. And then you can also just go, well, if there are people you don't need to deal with too much, well, then you can choose to not deal with them. But for those that you do have to, like family members that you might need to still continue having contact with, being able to show up to an interaction with them, a dinner, a family event, or what have you, and just knowing that they can be how they are and it's kind of got nothing to do with me. So I don't have to take it personally. I don't have to get upset. I don't have to justify, explain. I don't have to correct them. I actually really just don't have to do anything. And that's kind of liberating and freeing and gives you so much space to just go out and do what you want to do and be what you want to be. Alhamdulillah. That's what's been the quiet miracle of the realization that your life and your experience is based on your thinking and only your thinking and nothing else, is that without actually having to do anything, the biggest relationship change for me has been with my father. I had a very difficult relationship with him all my life, up until maybe 3 months ago. I probably wasn't actually even talking to him. And when I did have to talk to him, I would dread it because it would be like, well, something would be said that I would take personally and I would get upset about. And now he can choose to still say something that could be objectively considered a bit difficult. But I don't take it personally. I just see it that's his story. I don't even need to try and figure out why he has his story anymore. I mean, that's also the beautiful thing. You don't need to understand why other people think the way they think in order to let go of your reaction to it. That was also hugely liberating, because I used to really get hung up, well, unless I've solved it, unless I understood them, me, and the whole thing, then I couldn't close the door on it. You don't have to. If it doesn't work for you, just let it go. But the beautiful thing about it is that, funnily enough, my father now shows up with me in a much more kind, interested, loving way that I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to do anything. It's just happening, and it just keeps unfolding, and it keeps happening. And I show up differently, and he shows up differently. And where there might be a little bit of a strange thing said, generally about me being Muslim, it doesn't bother me anymore. I just let him have his opinion, and that's just it. It's just his opinion. Alhamdulillah. And the main reason that it's important to learn about the inside-out paradigm is because it's just the basic fact of existence. Having studied psychology, having trained as a counsellor, having worked in a number of different modalities, therapeutic modalities, they have you talking about often, most time in therapy, someone will come with a problem and we all get caught up in the story of our problem. And most therapies, other therapeutic modalities, have you just talking the narration of the story and keep pulling out the content of the story and keep trying to dissect it and understand it and all that kind of stuff. And that's why a lot of people often feel like they're kind of going around in circles and not much is happening except a lot of talking. Whereas the inside out paradigm, it's not about the content of your thought, in as much as just recognizing that you have a thought. The thought is there. It could be happy one minute, it could be sad the next minute. It's just there. You don't actually have to do anything with it. And that everyone else is going through life exactly the same way. They're feeling that they'll have a feeling about an experience, and that's based on the story they're telling themselves. You just need to have an awareness of what that is that you're telling yourself, and if it's helpful, keep it. If it's not, get rid of it. But you don't necessarily have to go backtracking through the past to try and explain where that thought came from, or how you know, where it came from, why you have it, and all that sort of stuff in order to get rid of it. Alhamdulillah. So that's, to me, it's the main reason to do the inside out paradigm, to understand it, is because it opens the door to just freely being without getting caught up in too much doing. Alhamdulillah. Who's the inside out paradigm for? Everybody. You know, I mean, if you want to learn about the inside out paradigm in order to conduct coaching, training, mentoring, that kind of thing, obviously that makes a lot of sense to come from that framework and using that paradigm. But people who just want self-change, people who want to experience their life in a different way, in a way that's more open and spacious and freeing, they're the people. It's available for any age group, any gender, any religion or non-religion. It's pretty much, because it is just the way of being. It is the truth of how we experience the world. Doesn't matter what your race is or age or gender or religion. We're all the same in this. So everyone. I am currently completing my Back to the Picture coaching certification, which is wrapped around the inside out paradigm. And the reason I'm doing this as opposed to any other kind of coaching out there is because it's just the essential truth of our existence. So it just really doesn't make sense to me to pursue any of the other ways of thinking in psychology or counseling. I'd said, you know, I've already done quite a lot of training in both counseling and psychology, so I'm aware of all the many theories and modalities out there. But this is just simple and clear. And as a coach, what I want to be able to do, for me, I work with Muslim women, what I want to do with my women is to get them out of their train of thinking, the story in their head. We all know people, we might be ourselves, that that when you start talking to them, it's just it's the same loop of problems and crises and explanations of why everything's going wrong. And frankly, it's boring and it goes nowhere. So, and when you have that in the coaching space, it can be really frustrating working with people who are just constantly in the loop of their story. So the inside out paradigm immediately kicks them out of the narration of their story and just into what do you think, why you're feeling what you're feeling is because of the story you're telling yourself. Is that story useful to you? No, it's not. Let's replace it. Let's let it go. And I love the energy and the pretty much instant change, positive change in our lives that come from internalizing that realization. Alhamdulillah.